Marcellus Wiley here, winning in the suit game today over you, Emmanuel Acho. Yeah,
I'm wearing my money green, though, Marcellus. My money green.
Black
with the crown.
Oh, the crown helps. The crown helps. That closes the gap. But black and guac, that doesn't get it out here. All right, let's get it started. I'm trying to stall. Let's talk about my Clippers. Who led by 21 points in the second quarter despite Paul George struggling again from the field, shooting 3 for 14. One player had no problem scoring, Luka Doncic. My dog, he had a 43-point triple-double, becoming the youngest player in NBA history to record a 40-point triple-double. Then he capped it off in overtime, hitting a game-winning step-back three. Series is now tied up. Tied up, I said, at 2 games apiece. So, Acho, you're impressed with the Mavs or disappointed in my Clippers in Game 4?
Look, Luka had Mavs fans everywhere screaming, Hallelujah! Okay?
That's what y'all doing.
Hallelujah! Praise to you.
Oh,
I'm
like that.
Caught the Holy Ghost.
Man.
I'm more impressed with the Dallas Mavericks.
Where you from?
Marcellus.
Where you from?
I'm born and raised in the 214 Dallas, Texas.
Okay, keep talking.
But I'm more impressed with the Mavericks, but here's why. The Dallas Mavericks in 4 games have played a game and a half without their second best player, Porzingis. The Dallas Mavericks in 4 games have played a game and a half with their best player on a bum ankle. And so when I think about all the things that the Mavericks have done, nothing is more impressive than what they have overcome. You sitting here playing the world-beating Los Angeles Clippers, anointed champions before the season had ever started. And yet, you come out here down 21 points, come back, mind you, not at your home court. It's not like you're sitting here in American Airlines Center on the AAC right down here on I-35 with your whole statement, with your whole crowd and fans boosting you. You're doing that by yourself.
Nobody at home.
But I'm saying it's one thing to overcome those kinds of odds and that kind of deficit. So while the Lakers have disappointed me, and I have my black on, because that is a disappointment suit. While the Lakers have disappointed me, the Mavs, they showed up. Props to them.
Look, I'm not going to take away props from them, but let's be real. You got to be more disappointed with my Clippers. Let's just talk about this. This is only a conversation because Luka, if he hits the same shot against, let's say, the Utah Jazz, is this leading our show? Is this national news? No. You know why? One, who are you playing against? The Utah Jazz. Lower expectations. Oh, what is really inciting the riot and making people go hallelujah is the fact that he did it against the potential world champions. He did it against the Clippers. So it's really that disappointment. Hey, Clippers, all year long, you and others have been saying, y'all playoff-ready team. All year long, the focus has been on when this team plays together, plays healthy. Even though they're not right now, still, this is the gelling time, the playoffs. And what we're seeing right now is them trying to hit the switch, and the switch go, oh, Betsy ain't firing up like they wanted to. So I'm looking at the Clippers right now as I've seen so many talented guys growing up. And it's the curse of the gifted. I don't know if you've witnessed this. It happens to individuals, and this happens to collective teams. When you have an individual who is so talented, and I know a few, and I'm not going to call them out because they didn't make it, but they skip steps because they're like, oh, the fundamentals is for the dudes who are compromised, who are limited in ability. Let them worry about every detail. Me, I just show up, put the uniform on, activate the switch, and then roll.
That's what the Clippers doing? Is that what the Clippers doing?
Not there yet. That's the individual. But as a collective team, sometimes you go out there and you lose the psychological warfare. One, you're going against a lesser opponent. You're trying to lie to yourself, say, they got us, they could get us, but you know you're lying. Then they come out, like you said, a game and a half without their second best player, and then their best player comes out with one leg, one ankle, and you're like, I'm lying to myself. They could get us. They can't. Then you go out there, you're up 21, and then you know the soul is like, stop lying. It's a wrap. And then they try to hit the switch because Dallas crept back into that game. I think right now between the ears, not only the expectations for the Clippers this year, but this reality that they're somehow, some way playing down to what they think Dallas is, and Dallas is playing up to who they think the Clippers are.
There are universal factors across sports, Marcellus. In the game of football, you have turnovers and takeaways. They're the same thing, but they're looked at differently. You see, a turnover means I gave it to you. A takeaway means you came and took it. You came and took what's yours. The Dallas Mavericks, they took that game. The Clippers didn't turn that game over. The Dallas Mavericks, they took that game. Clippers put up 133 points. Kawhi played a phenomenal game.
They had 5 quarters.
On both ends of the court. On both ends of the court, Kawhi balled.
Did PG?
No, PG, I don't even know. He don't know if the playoffs started. But the Mavericks took that game. Here's what I mean. This is a point I made earlier. Dallas Mavericks, you're playing without Porzingis.
Yeah.
Dallas Mavericks, Luka is on one ankle. I understand adrenaline works in sports, but to a point. You're down by 21. You're not at home. The series is over. I'm sitting on my couch, Marcellus. I'm like, man, do I even want to keep watching this? We got to talk about it tomorrow, so I'll keep it on.
Do your job.
Right? Let me do my job. But the series, for all intents and purposes, it is over. The Mavericks have not come back from down 21 outside this bubble on the road in over 18 years. In over 18, down by 21, Marcellus, it's game over. And yet, Luka the Dawn. The Dawn, nigga. So yes, I understand.
Love it.
Here's my thing, and this is where I'm going to leave this pin right here.
Okay.
I'm not disappointed in the Clippers. I'm disappointed in Paul George. If we want to get specific. I don't know if we're allowed to get specific on this show.
Yes, we can.
Bro, 45 minutes of play yesterday. That's what Paul George played. 45 minutes. 9 points. A lot of times we come on here in our fancy suits and our brooches and pocket squares, and we use hyperbole, exaggeration to make a statement. Oh, I could. Look, you put me on the court for 45 minutes, I'm going to give you 9 points.
You give me 9 in the NBA.
With seriousness in my face. If I got to go to the camera. If you put me on a point, if you put me on the court for 45 minutes, I promise, I vow to you, America, I would give you 9 points. How Paul George, Marcellus, only give you 9 points. So I'm not disappointed in the Clippers. I'm disappointed in Paul George, but I'm more impressed with the Dallas Mavericks.
I'll tell you why Paul George only had 9 points.
Why? He's scared?
He's mental right now. He's mental. Look, it's just a real thing, man. You look at it, the yips, as they call it in baseball. You know, a guy just all of a sudden between his ears forgets how great he is, forgets how to do the basic things. Paul George's first 3 plays called in Game 5 need to be either breaking the rim or going to the foul line. I'm tired of these jump shots. I'm tired of these turnarounds. I'm tired of these 3-pointers. I'm tired of you being so comfortable being out of your zone, being out of your greatness. He seems like a guy who's not going to go out swinging in the fight to get Paul George back. And I ain't say playoff P on purpose. Just give me Paul George. I don't even need playoff P. I need the normal dude with the normal.
Paul George.
Just Paul
That's it.
George. I got to take this dude back to my old neighborhood and not just leave it there. We going to the alley in my old neighborhood because the Wizard of Oz promises heart and promises courage and all. I just want you to be you. I want to take you back to the basics so you can get that gangster back in you and be who you are. Speaking of gangster, let's go to our boy Slick Rick, the Bucher NBA analyst. So, Slick, impressed with the Mavs or disappointed in my Clippers?
I'm actually impressed with the boast by Acho. Acho, what's your shooting range? Exactly.
I'm limited to about 28 feet. I'm a mid-range assassin.
Boy, stops.
I'm a mid-range assassin.
And you're how tall?
I'm about 6'2 and a half, 6'3". Okay.
Lower.
You ain't getting 9 points in 45 minutes.
You're not giving me 9, Slick?
In an NBA playoff game,
I'm getting to the foul line at least 6 times, Slick.
If you...
At least. Football player on the court. The straight pump fake, Slick. Bully ball.
Fair enough. I can't help but be disappointed, impressed by you, disappointed by the Clippers. And it's as simple as this, going big picture. This is a Clippers team that beat the Dallas Mavericks all 3 times that they faced each other prior to the start of the playoffs. That was a Dallas team that had its starting center in Dwight Powell and had its best playmaker off the bench in Jalen Brunson. They have not had either one of those guys, and they have only had one of their stars at best available throughout this series. The Clippers during the regular season demonstrated that they were a better offensively shooting team. They demonstrated that they were a better rebounding team. This is overall in the league. They have been neither one of those things in this series. So as good as the Dallas Mavericks have been, I look at what the Clippers have not been and what they had been previously, both against this team and the rest of the league, and I can't help but wonder, why am I not seeing that? Because if I was, no matter what Luka did, no matter what the Dallas Mavericks did, this series would not be tied 2-2.
Whew. talk about it, man. Acho.
What's up,
First of all, don't disrespect the sport of basketball or all those players out there, including
look,
Paul George.
I'm going to the free throw line at least 6 times, Marcellus.
1 for 6 is going to be that stat line right there. All right, here we go. If Acho walked up to me right now, for whatever reason he got beef with me, I'm going to immediately size him up. He's smaller than me. He way nicer than me. And then if he told me also something was wrong with him, he was hurt, not only have I already went from confident to cocky to arrogant, like I'm just going to mail it in, but I'm also going to give them some tests. And then when I realize I'm up on those tests, I'm going to go back to being cocky and arrogant. And that's what the Clippers are doing. They're playing this dangerous game with the fire that can warm you or it can burn you. And right now, we're caught in between. I'm looking at this like, look, you're fighting against some cats, some roaches. You're going to know you've been scratched up, and it's going to be hard to kill them. That's who, yeah, you didn't grow up with roaches. I grew up with roaches. It's hard to get them all. They just keep coming. And that's who the Dallas Mavericks are in terms of their intestinal fortitude, as Coach would say. Right now, they're just a team that has no quit in them, led by their leader, Luka. I'm not going to sound the alarm, but I know that the alarm is ringing. But remember, everyone out there, when your alarm is ringing, remember, no one wants to hear their alarm. No one wants to get woken up. No one wants to be, out of their good sleep. Now it's time to go to work. The Clippers thought that they didn't have to set the alarm in round 1. They thought they had to set it round 2, maybe round 3, of course, if they get to see the Lakers. But this is a situation where you shouldn't be worried if you're a Clipper. Because guess what? The only people I know that are worried are the people that are not prepared or the people that are out there who are just not equipped. We're equipped, and we weren't prepared for the unexpected. But now we're going to expect the unexpected. I don't give a damn who y'all put on the court.
Okay.
We are coming for blood. It's going to be a 6-game series, 4-2, and I have a full screen to bring the facts home beyond my rhetoric. Only 4 teams in the last, 17 years have went on to sweep it all. Like, we're talking about the champions who have first-round sweeps. 4. That means 13 teams that end up being NBA champions, like the Clippers will be, had to struggle in the first round. I would have loved to see Emmanuel Acho during the shows during those years.
What's up, sir?
When those 4 teams went out there and swept and then all of a sudden became champions, because there's 13 other years where it's always a struggle.
Ooh, Dallas Mavericks just shaking in their boots. Marcellus, Doc Rivers himself, he said they looked emotionally weak. So unless the Clippers are going to clip off your last 45 seconds and play a pregame, ain't nobody scared because Doc Rivers don't know how to motivate these boys. But everybody's putting all this pub on Luka.
Why didn't you start with this? This is the fire.
Look, I'm not offering necessarily an opinion. I'm offering a fact. You said that your team, in a game in which Luka, the great player for the Mavericks, is halfway handicapped, y'all blow a 21-point lead. That's not my opinion, bro. Doc Rivers did not know how to motivate them. At least he didn't yesterday. But let me get back to my point. Everyone wants to make it about Luka. Let's equalize Luka and let's equalize Kawhi. If those 2 players weren't on the court, the Mavs still outscored the Clippers starters 61-41. So even if you take out, Luka just dominated. What? He just dominated. The Mavs starters still outscored the Clippers starters by 61 points. Now, Lou Will came in and gave buckets off the bench. He gave them buckets, but it wasn't just a Luka domination of the entire team. I didn't say I was impressed with Luka. I said I was impressed with the Mavs because Burke came in buckets. Hardaway Jr., buckets. Even Boban buckets.
Hold on now.
Go ahead.
We outscored their bench 60-29.
I said starters. You're talking about a bench, so I said starters.
Starters minus the 2 stars equals what you said.
What you talking about? Montrezl is one of those 2
stars?
is that the start?
He treads along right now. He's dealing with a whole lot on his plate and fewer minutes. Get him, Slick.
The issue is that Luka, yes, other guys are scoring, but what do we say about superstars? They don't just get their numbers, they get other guys' numbers.
Get them up,
and the problem is that Luka has not only been scoring, but he's also playmaking. And the problem I have with that is he's basically their only playmaker. So if you're not going to double him, fine. Everybody else has to stay home. I can't have other guys going off and Luka going off at the same time. He has to be one or the other. And the fact of the matter is, anytime Kawhi was matched up against Luka, Luka struggled to get a shot, struggled to make a play, and simply the attention to detail to make sure that Kawhi was fighting through screens and saying, no, we're not going to switch on it, I'm staying home, or doubling Luka and making somebody else beat you. They didn't do either one.
So is that a coaching thing, Slick?
Oh, here you go again.
Because y'all looked at me crazy. Y'all looked at me crazy when I brought up Doc Rivers, like I just spoke negatively about the Pope. Is that not a coaching?
No. Because I honestly, this is about playing the long game.
Okay.
And it's a matter of, if I've got Kawhi Leonard, I got Paul George. If I start doubling, that's my concession. I'm defensively not good enough. I'm not sending that to Kawhi Leonard at this point in the series, or Paul George, or any of my guys. It's like, you know what? If Luka can carry this water for 2 more games, God bless him. Or if he gets 1 more game, maybe we switch up and we change it at that point. But we're focusing on Paul George and we're focusing on Luka Doncic. And I want to give you a matchup that says everything about how bass-ackwards this series is. In 3 of the 4 games, Seth Curry has either matched or out-rebounded Montrezl Harrell.
That's your guy.
Let me say that again.
That's your guy.
Seth Curry
Which one?
has matched or out-rebounded Montrezl Harrell in 3 of the 4 games. And Seth, not Steph, now don't get him confused, Seth had a 30-plus plus-minus in Game 2. You know how many playoff plus-minus 20s he's had?
How many?
None. His older brother, has had a career 3. He's only 2 behind him. And if this keeps going, Seth's going to catch him in this series. You can't have Seth Curry being that kind of a star and out-rebounding Montrezl Harrell. And I don't expect that to happen in the next 2
Marcella's getting depressed, Slick. We got to stop. I hear him sighing over here. Marcel, honestly, go to break, Marcel.
Dog, seriously, we were having a lot of fun until all those facts got in the damn way. What did Lil Wayne say?
What'd he say?
He said, it's no problem, baby. I got him. It's a victory lap. We just jogging. Trust me, we gonna be fine. Best rapper alive, best team alive. Coming up at the top of the hour, I'll tell you why Montrezl Harrell went too far with Luka Doncic and why I don't like the double standard. But first, the process is broken in Philly. I'll tell you why Joel Embiid might be the reason why it's broken. Next, Speak for Yourself, presented by Hyundai.
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself, presented by Hyundai. Let's move on to Philly, who is not feeling the brotherly love right now. Sixers were swept by the Celtics, causing people to wonder, well, what's wrong with the process? Joel Embiid is a 3-time All-Star, but he hasn't been past the conference semis in his career. After another playoff exit, Embiid was not trying to hear about what Philly's problems could be. Let's take a listen.
What do you think the issue is with this team? I mean, do you think it's the way it's built? Do you think it's coaching? Do you think it's the bad luck with the injuries, all of the above? What would you say the issue is? Because, you know, like Brett may unfortunately take the floor.
That's a very stupid question. There's no issue. We good. We just didn't win. We came out. We couldn't make shots. The whole series, it's frustrating. We could have done more. I could have done more, but like I said, that was a stupid question. There's no issue. There was a lot of stuff going on that you just, live and learn.
Joined once again by Slick Rick, who has talked me down. I could only get 6 points in 45 minutes in an NBA game, but that is fine. That's fine. I'll concede to my 6.
That was
We still have some work to do.
Marcellus, I'm going to start with you, bro. Should the Sixers move on from Joel Embiid?
Yes, and it's time. Look, somebody's got to go, and I'm certain that the coach is not going to be enough, as Brett Brown more than likely is going to be out of town. And now we have to look at these 2 stars and how this oil and water, for whatever reason, is just not mixing. And if you make me choose, I'm going to choose Joel Embiid is the one that has to leave out of town. Super talented, uber talented, not in perfect shape, not my type of shape or even Acho's type of shape. I'm talking about active superstar shape. And I don't see that. Look, you look good fooling somebody, but you don't look good if you had to go out there and work with that body, that same body. So Joel Embiid, with all this talent, is compromised at times, hurt, even when healthy, labors. And then, more importantly, he talks and he talks. And just in that same clip, it just doesn't rub you the right way. And being a former athlete, I know sometimes you could talk your way out of town as well, because that becomes the cherry on top for all the other issues I talked about. But look, I'm just tired of trusting the process just being real, because it's broken and because I'm not insane. The definition of insanity is first being seriously mentally ill, madness, right? But we also know in sports, it's doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result.
Just in sports.
Good Lord. We can't keep going down this path as they're on their third GM, as we're trying to trust the process and being deep with the details. 13 other players are in the playoffs that are now other teams that were once a part of the process building in Philadelphia. They've just let talent, because it's a disjointed process, talent after talent in and out, starting off with Drew Holiday all the way to today. You look at guys who are not there, but Brett Brown's going to have to take that as a scapegoat. Elton Brand just got there, and he's trying to fix something that is disjointed. But Joel Embiid, if I had to say which player has to be shipped out, it's you, big dog.
Yes, they do need to make a change, and I'm not choosing between the two. I'm clearing the decks.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if you can, because the reality is you lost for 4 years as part of the process. And this isn't just getting rid of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. You already got rid of Jahlil Okafor. You already got rid of Dario Saric. You already got rid of Nerlens Noel. You've already gotten rid of the majority of players that the process supposedly was bringing you to build around. But this is the difficulty, and this is what has been proved by both, I believe, Ben and certainly Joel. And by the way, it wasn't a stupid question. If it was a stupid question, it was a stupider answer.
Say it.
Yeah, there's no problems. We have no issues. We didn't make shots, and we didn't defend as well as we could, and we didn't play as hard, and I could have done more, and there was stuff going on that, you don't know about, but no, we didn't have any issues. What? That's your leader. And if you are playing for a championship, and the process was supposed to be, I don't know if you guys know this, but before the process started, the Philadelphia 76ers were a second round and out team. And it was, well, we're not satisfied with that. We want to build a championship. Well, now you're a first round and out team. How does that fit?
One and done.
But the problem is that your best player, and I'm sure you guys understand this, the same thing applies with leadership in the NFL. Your most talented player has to be your hardest worker and your most responsible guy. He may not have natural leadership skills, but he has to be the guy that you look at, and he holds everybody accountable because he holds himself accountable. If you don't have that, then you have no chance of winning a championship. And this is the difficulty with Ben and Joel, is that they both, on almost every team, are going to, and certainly with Joel as the center, are very likely going to be the most talented player on that team. And if they are that, and they aren't the hardest worker, and they aren't the most responsible, then you are working, you're just handicapped. You're kneecapped from the very beginning. So as tough as it may sound, I'm looking at the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm thinking, if you really want to play for a championship, then you need to find another best player to build around.
Slick, man, I was calm until you started spitting all them facts, and now you got me riled up. See, Joel Embiid has to understand he has been a lot of bark and very minimal bite. If you were going to express your honest opinion at that being a dumb question, which it was not, in fact, the reporter was kind, because the reporter gave you an out. Oh, was it bad luck with injuries? Everybody got injuries in the playoffs right now. So he really was kind and gave you an out. If you want to say that's a stupid question, then let's talk about some other facts. Joel Embiid, who does, in fact, have to go? Let me just get that question out and that answer out the way. This process started in 2015. Marcellus, the last time I played in the National Football League for Philadelphia in the same city that Embiid played was 2015. That was ages ago. The process is dead. The process is gone. But again, back to Embiid. Embiid, played 43% of the games.
Lord.
209 out of 483 games since joining the Philadelphia 76ers. Okay, come on, Acho. He took them first 2 years to get healthy, get right. Okay. Since then, played 209 out of 319 games. Still only 65%. Okay, Acho, talk about what he's done for me lately. Last 2 seasons, still played less than 80% of the games. To put that in context, out of 5 games, Joel Embiid is going to miss 1. But now let's talk about what Slick Rick said, because I was an athlete. I do understand. Your best player has to be your fearless leader. If your best player is going to talk trash on Instagram, talk smack on Twitter, talk smack on the court, your best player has to be able to back it up consistently. You have to be consistently good to be great. You can't be good when you feel like it. You got to bring that dog each and every single day. But the thing that frustrates me most about Embiid is that he always tries to push off the blame onto someone else, deflect the blame, stand up there on that podium knowing you're the best player and say, you know what? I didn't get it done. I didn't do a good enough job leading this team to get it done. Don't deflect. Sure as heck don't call a great question a dumb question, but understand that if there's a problem in Philadelphia and I am the nucleus of this organization, maybe I'm the problem.
Woo, we going at his leadership.
I have to.
No, you should. Look, everybody out there, apology accepted, because I was called a hater. I'm going to go back to my radio days. I know all y'all listen to it, right? All right, let's go back. The process actually started in 2012.
Okay,
with Drew Holiday going, and then 3 straight years of them winning fewer than 20 games. Process started, Sam Hinkie, all that. That's when it started. Here's the thing. I was called a hater because this guy was drafted 2014. Missed his first 2 years, and then the 3rd year he plays only 31 games. But you know what? He wasn't inactive. He wasn't on IR when it came to social media, taking those shots at Rihanna and living the life and the likability, and everyone was just glowing over how amazing his personality was. And I kept saying, if I were on a team that drafted somebody who was having this much fun not playing the sport, I will be suspect of them when they come back to play that sport. And right now, looking at the resume, even though he has amazing talent, we're talking about leadership, and we're talking about availability and why maybe you're not available because of your commitment to that same game. He just had too much fun in the sun when we were out there trying to build something special. So now I look at this situation, and I'm like, in maybe your last moments as a Sixer, you're saying stupid question? I'm like, it's a stupid answer. Like, more times than not, even though it's cliche, when you lose, you got to talk about I. And when you win, you got to talk about we. And it just has to come down to those moments. And I don't see enough of those leadership moments for Joel Embiid. Therefore, for me, he's the one that has to depart.
To double down on what both of you guys said, the usage rate of Joel Embiid, because this has been the out, is, well, Brett Brown's coaching and the fact that he didn't have a point guard in this series to get him the ball, and that's the problem. Joel Embiid's usage rate, he was 8th in the league. He was ahead of LeBron James and Damian Lillard in terms of the plays where he was involved. You know who was the next center that high on the usage rate list? Nikola Jokic, and he was 32nd. I don't want to hear alibis for anybody else. Joel Embiid had the ball enough to make a difference, but the fact is he was never in shape, and he never took it seriously enough to pay attention to the details. It starts with him, and if you believe that he can get better at this point in his career, then you stay with him. I have my doubts.
What's that old cliche? If you point one finger, the 3 fingers pointing right back at you, Joel Embiid. Coming up, I got the chance to sit down with Commissioner Roger Goodell. And wait till you hear what he had to say about Colin Kaepernick. That's next. Speak for yourself. Presented by Hyundai.
Tonight on FS1, catch Javier Baez and Anthony Rizzo, R to the Izzo, as they lead the Cubs against Miguel Cabrera and the Tigers. Action begins at 7 Eastern on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. In my baseball voice. Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. My man Acho has his wildly popular series, Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. In the latest episode, he got to sit down with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Nothing was off limits, including the progress on social justice issues and Colin Kaepernick. Take a listen.
You can't understate how valuable the message that you put out a couple months was. At least as a former player, as a black man in society, that message, it resonated with me. It spoke to me. You said you listened, you heard, you learned. You even apologized to so many. But in the midst of all that, there wasn't a specific message or apology to the catalyst for it all, Kaepernick, who you mentioned. If you were to publicly express your remorse, apologize to Kaepernick, what would you say?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I wish we had listened earlier, Cap, to what you were kneeling about and what you were trying to bring attention to. We had invited him in several times to have the conversation, have the dialogue. I wish we had the benefit of that.
Yeah.
We never did. And, you know, we would have benefited from that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can catch part 2 of Acho's interview with Roger Goodell tonight at 7 Eastern on Acho's social media outlets. Joined now by Fox NFL analyst LeVar Arrington. But going to the man who did the interview first, my man Acho. What was your biggest takeaway from the sit-down with the commissioner?
The fact that Commissioner Goodell was willing to sit down. That was my biggest takeaway from the sit-down. He had very little to gain and a whole lot to lose as one of the most powerful men, for being honest, in America, running one of the most powerful sports in America that's been said to own one day of the week. But, gentlemen, we live in a cancel culture, again, where people would rather dismiss you than listen to you and see if you have listened, grown, and evolved. We haven't given people a chance to acquire more information and potentially change their opinion. See, what I've had to learn firsthand is I may cast my opinion based on one thing, based on what I saw, but then another game occurs, another play occurs, another quarter occurs, and I have to digest the information I've now been given and alter my opinion potentially based on the new information that I was given. Commissioner Goodell has made many false steps, many that he has admitted and he will continue to admit. But I was just encouraged by the fact that he was willing to sit down. That's the first step. It's not the last step, because after you understand, you now have to act. But I'm not going to sit here and cast a stone at someone who is willing to listen, because before there can ever be progress, there must be understanding. So that was my first takeaway and my biggest takeaway.
I like it. My first takeaway, not my biggest, I'll get to my biggest, but my first takeaway was the background music. It had me almost in tears. I was almost in emotional shambles listening to the interview take place, because Acho, you do such a great job. First and foremost, amazing job, bro. The job that you're doing is so commendable, and it's super amazing. Inspiration to even an old fella like myself, man. So you keep doing what you're doing. Yes, sir. Maybe that was my biggest takeaway from the interview. I like the fact I got an opportunity to spend a lot of time with the commissioner during the head and health safety crisis connected to football. So I was an authority on speaking on head and health, concussions. We spent so much time together speaking on different topics. And the one thing that I got from him that really resonated in the interview is his genuine, sincere approach to answering questions. I think it's a gift that he has always had, and it's something to be commended for. The one thing that I thought about when I was listening to the interview was I wanted more. Like I wanted to know, for somebody who's so willing to get out in front of things or stand on the train tracks when that locomotive is coming, what was his pressures from the ownership? I think for me, when I was listening to the way he was answering your questions, it just seemed to me there was something more there. I can speak to this from my perspective. My angle is what I took from Roger Goodell. But I wonder, what would those conversations be like? How do you answer the question of what was the pressure like, or what was the influence like from the owners in this moment of truth, of trying to figure out what's the best approach, knowing that something that you should have listened to a little bit longer ago, you're now listening to and addressing it currently today?
Yeah, real quick, LA, I'm going to chime in on that, because not only you, but so many people have commented and said that, you know, Goodell's been too much of a pushover. And it's hard to dispute that when you look from a bird's eye view. But when you look a little more narrowly, what I've had to remember is, wait a second, there's that quote, you can have all the authority but no power. right? Goodell, to a degree, works for these owners. And what I've tried to remind fans is Goodell's not a head coach. Goodell's not a general manager. Goodell's not an owner. And as it pertains to someone like Colin Kaepernick, who so many people are like, I'm not listening to Goodell until Cap gets a job. This interview
It wasn't him who made that decision.
That was not him who made that decision. Now, as the face of the NFL, he does need to step up and did need to step up in past tense when some of these decisions were being made, because again, the buck stops with the commissioner, like the buck stops with the head coach. But I just want the fans who are at home watching to remember, it is not up. The commissioner has never hired nor fired any players, and that's just one thing that needs to be made abundantly clear.
I want to raise my hand to make this conversation more uncomfortable. Okay. I'm looking at this, and I was like, amazing. What an amazing offseason, first of all, for Roger Goodell in terms of Q rating. I already have tremendous respect for Roger Goodell. He does his job and does it well, which is to grow the game and protect the shield. Look, there's been missteps by him, as all leaders. Think about running a Fortune 500 company, a company that's going to make $18 billion. Like, of course it's going to come with its warts. It's coming with its missteps. But between the draft, between the apology that Acho talked about, and this interview right here, looking forward to part 2 tonight, there's a lot that you learned about Roger Goodell, and there's a lot to love about Roger Goodell. Here's where it's going to get a little uncomfortable for me.
Buckle up.
Okay, because LeVar kind of went there. It's like, I want more out of Roger Goodell. And I think one of the things that I'm reading from Roger Goodell is there is more, but, man, I got to cover up. Think about it. Roger Goodell, first thing out of his mouth was like, I challenge you, Acho, to make me uncomfortable. I'm kind of well-versed in these things. He knows how to talk it. And in this situation, I think that there's a layer that has not been disclosed just yet that I want to go and search and find. It's about the fact that Roger Goodell knows that he was talking to a naive activist. I call him naive activist because he was young in it. By his own words, he had a lot to learn. And Roger Goodell was learning about this situation from a guy who just started this situation. So Roger Goodell, let's go back to 2016, maybe didn't have the same direct response that he would have in 2020 because he was trying to figure it out. But when you're trying to figure something out, you need dialogue. You need communication. You need the other side to show leadership. And that's where Kaepernick showed absence. And so Roger Goodell mentioned it. In this interview, he said, yeah, we reached out several times. And the dude didn't want to say anything. And I think because Kaepernick had so many missteps, in the early phases especially, that he didn't even want to take the meeting to show the leadership from what his cause was. And here's another level to it. This is the uncomfortable part. The deflection by Colin Kaepernick and his supporters, because even Acho, I think you fell victim to it, but I'm going to let you respond to it. There's a framing going on that Colin Kaepernick peacefully protested during the anthem, but it was not about the flag. Colin Kaepernick, 2016, August 26, quote, I am not going to stand up to show pride in the flag. Foreign country that oppresses black people and people of color. So, wait a minute. Roger Goodell sits there in 2016 and said, hey, Cap, 2016 to 2020, let's talk. Meanwhile, he's being polarized and dividing the country because on one hand, he's saying it's not about the flag. But you started this off initially saying it was about the flag. So I say all that in summation to say, I think the reason we don't see, LeVar was talking to it, I'm going to talk further about it. We don't see Roger Goodell going all the way there because he was never allowed the opportunity to truly have dialogue. The same dialogue that players say that they're protesting for, which is conversation, awareness, and dialogue. But the catalyst or leader disappears when the NFL reaches out for that same dialogue.
I think this is when it gets hairy, Marcellus. Okay. I can't necessarily speak for another human being, but I can offer up my opinion. You hit the nail on the head when you said, I'm not convinced that Colin Kaepernick knew exactly what he was getting himself into. In fact, I'll take a little step further. I will assume Colin Kaepernick did not know what he was getting himself into. Otherwise, some of the decisions would have been a little more calculated and a little more tactful. You see, sometimes you do something and you get thrust into a position you did not plan on being thrust into. And at that point in time, you got a decision to make. You got to figure out, what am I going to do with this platform I now have? I started this first episode 2 months ago. 25 million views in 3 days. I said, uh-oh, I got a problem. Because now people are looking at me. People are looking at me to further a conversation. Now, were there missteps on both ends? I do believe so. Because I do think that Colin Kaepernick, he wouldn't have worn the pig socks if he knew just how far this was going to go. I do think quotes like you said, they wouldn't have necessarily been iterated in that manner if we knew the movement. But I think I look at the positives on both sides. Colin Kaepernick raised awareness. Roger Goodell made a mistake. He has now acknowledged that mistake, and let's try to move forward with it. But I do agree with you that the situation called for Kaepernick before Kaepernick realized that he was actually calling for such a large-scale situation.
It's organic, Emmanuel. And the reason why it's not wrong, even with, and that's a great big piece of information that you just pulled, Marcellus. That, honestly speaking, that's awesome. I would still just say it's being organic and being present is what mattered most for Colin Kaepernick. Not being perfect is what I would say. Is because in looking at him saying, I'm not going to do this, and him directly stating the flag, even though it can be taken literally in the meaning of saying this is a protest against the flag based off of that quote, it was not about the flag. Right. And even if Colin Kaepernick, and I have this conversation so many times, he is a figurehead for something that has been maybe slumbering, hibernating. It's always been there. There's always been the undercurrent, and it became relevant because somebody was doing it in the largest sport, the most popular sport in America. And so it became a topic. It became something that, people got behind. And so for me, I don't think that he had to be perfect in his quotes and what he presented. I think it was more so about him being bold enough and brave enough to actually take a stand in that moment, whether he 100% knew exactly what he was representation of or not, because there are a lot of people that understand it from a very, very deep perspective that was just glad to have a voice to be able to speak on it after all of those things began to happen. So it had to happen that way, Acho. It had to happen. It couldn't happen perfectly. It couldn't have been perfect. No, I don't think so. I just don't look at it. It didn't have to come perfect.
I didn't say perfect, but certainly these egregious missteps either highlight a lack of acumen about what you're trying to do, or it highlights a character issue with the person doing these
egregious missteps specifically you're referring to?
We're talking about the flag quote I just pointed out. We talk about the socks. We could talk about Jed York, who gave him $1 million right after he gave his $1 million.
But it's not about Kaepernick. But it's not about the flag, and it's bigger than both of those things.
It could get bigger than that. Okay, but as we grow there, like any house built on the foundation, what's most important? Not the 100th floor, the foundation. And where did this foundation
Kaepernick is the foundation. I don't look at him as being the foundation of all of this. Kaepernick is maybe
if you use the NFL's platform to start a conversation, and then you disappear from that same conversation with that same NFL you use as his platform, that's the foundation. Whether everybody else piles on top, it started with Kaepernick. It started with Kaepernick. So here's my thing. If you look at the situation, look, his own advisor who told him to kneel, they had a falling out. They had issues. No, Dr. Harry Everett. We're going back. Here's the thing. I just know that you go faster alone and farther together. And I think the NFL, with its issues in handling this, was still trying to have backdoor conversations because they weren't allowed to have front door ones because of the delicate manner of this, the sensitivity around this, and the fact that the other party wasn't responding. He kicked up dust and disappeared. So in that situation, where do you go then? Now you have all the other players who are trying to maximize this moment, but not necessarily the core of the issue is coming from them because they don't understand the moment because the leader catalyst has lost it as well. I just wish that this situation would get truly resolved because I know it has to irk many of people that it wasn't fully optimized by Kaepernick, and the NFL didn't fully optimize and understand it from their perspective. A lot has been lost in the middle. Coming up, Bill Belichick.
Part 2?
Is there a part 2? Yeah, I can't wait for part 2. Bill Belichick appears to have moved on from Tom Brady. I'll tell you why I don't have a problem with it. Next!
Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Let's move on to a former relationship. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Now, the pair has the most wins and Super Bowls by a coach-quarterback combo. But after 20 seasons together, Belichick seems to have moved on pretty fast once Brady made the move to Tampa. Let's take a listen.
We've had, a lot of great players over the course of that time. And, you could have the same conversation about all of them. Teddy Bruschi, Rodney Harrison, Ty Law, Logan Mankins, Rob. I mean, you go right down the line. So it's, it's professional football. It's a National Football League. Every team has changes every year. We have them. So does everybody else. And I think right now everybody's, focused on this year.
LeVar, I can't. It's glad to have you back. Marcellus, yes. I'm going to you first. Should Tom Brady be bothered by Belichick's comments?
Not bothered at all. A hallmark of Belichick's greatness is not to give out Hallmark cards. And that's what I love about Bill Belichick. He's focused on the task at hand with the soldiers on hand. He's just like, look, you want to know why I'm so great? Is because I can turn the page. And so many people in this world don't understand that maybe you're just a chapter in someone else's book. Just a chapter. And even though Tom Brady looked like he got a volume, I still got to turn the page, and I don't want to hear the cries from the last page while I'm reading the next one. It's my mindset. It's the same mindset I have in life, so I get where Belichick is coming from. It's the circle of life, Simba. Like, look, Mufasa ain't gonna be here forever. No matter what you want to say about it, no one is here forever, and no situation or circumstance is here forever. This too shall pass, and Bill Belichick, heartless as he may sound, is moved on as well.
Marcellus, you just had the let me collect. You gonna say audacity? You just had the audacity to say that Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, rather, is just a chapter in Bill Belichick's book. Tom Brady is the book. The book doesn't exist without Tom Brady. You, Marcellus, should know because you were an author. You wrote a book. What is it? Never Shut Up.
What you mean, what is it? Wait a minute.
I'm looking at it. Okay. You wrote a book.
Chill,
Look, you cannot write that book without certain characters. Yeah. Certain characters are intrinsic and inherent to the DNA of that book.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is inherent to the DNA of Bill Belichick and all his success.
Yes.
Just like Bill Belichick and is inherent to all of Tom Brady's success. That was shade. Tom Brady should be offended. Bill Belichick, you just compared Tom Brady to Logan Mankins, an offensive lineman with one first-team All-Pro. Bump the All-Pros. An offensive lineman. Do not ever compare the greatest quarterback of all time to an offensive lineman, regardless of who that offensive lineman is or is not. It's utter and complete shade, and Marcellus, it's disrespectful. It's a little bit. Go ahead, because I got more.
Belichick, because he's a coach, he certainly has a lot more years in front of him. It's all on him. Depends on how long he wants to go. His book is not over. You think that you saw the back cover of his book? You just saw the end of that volume, that chapter with Tom Brady in it. Not to get too heavy, but the reason why I really understand where Belichick's coming from, because my mom passed away in 2005. Now, what I'm saying is, you have to move on. Like, that increased my pain tolerance to a level that is almost inhuman. Like, I can deal with anything y'all give me because I dealt with that. I think that Bill Belichick is a guy who has an understanding that I've had some lows. Like, look at the road of Bill Belichick just to get with Bill Parcells in the 80s, let alone when he finally went out on his own and everyone was questioning him. He landed flat on his face for 5 of those first 6 years. I think Bill Belichick has a pain tolerance that's so great that no matter what you give him, he's still like, yeah, but I understand what this is all about. I have to continue to make moves, do great, and move on from things of the past. That's all.
I just think human nature being involved, he's going to be a little bothered by it. I mean, I agree with Acho in the sense that, listen, we can part ways. We know it's how it happens in the National Football League, the business of it, yada, yada, yada. I get all that, but he is the greatest to ever do it. They are the greatest to do it together. I just think that what Acho said in terms of the respect factor of it, you could have addressed it. You could have said pretty much all the things that he said to address Tom Brady and not use all of those names as examples. Because honestly speaking, you're just trying to justify that this is a team culture. This is a program culture, a system culture, and all players have to leave it, which is the truth. There's no problem with that. But give that man his just due, because some systems, some cultures don't yield the type of success that his has, and it was with one quarterback during the duration of that time.
So, LeVar, why did you say that you didn't miss Jason Whitlock? Why did you say that this show
I didn't say that.
Why did you say
put that in my mouth?
Colin
Don't you
Cowherd
speak
and other
that evil
co-hosts?
on me, Ricky
You
Bobby.
never say you missed.
Don't
I
you
don't see the
speak that
tears for
evil on me.
Whitlock.
I did say that, Jason. I said, I'm glad that you're gone, Whitlock.
See what I'm
now
saying?
look at me.
See what
Now
I'm
I got my hair all out. I got my chain on.
You wearing chains
I don't have
now,
no
Jay.
jacket on.
J-Dub.
Hey, Whitlock. Hey, Whitlock. No, I'm joking. You know I love you, boy.
That's my point. No matter how much you love somebody, you got to let go, big dog.
You got to move on.
You got to move on.
Hey,
You got me on that one. You got me. No response on that one.
You can move on, but still, please, when you talk about Tom Brady, put some respect on it.
Put some respect with a K.
And Whitlock.
What up, LeVar?
LeVar trying to clean it up. It's a wrap. It's over. Brady gone. Whitlock gone.
Get out of here. Coming up in our big story, Montrezl Harrell, he used race to trash talk Luka to Don. We'll tell you if this means the NBA has a double standard. Next, speak for yourself.
You're watching Speak for Yourself. Marcellus Wiley, Emmanuel Acho. Let's do something.
Is the suit grown on you?
I don't like that color, man. Look, I give you props when I give you props. Take the heat when I give you heat. All right, let's get to a big story presented by Hyundai and return to the Clippers and Mavs. More specifically, Montrezl Harrell and Luka Doncic, who got into it on Game 3 Friday night during their initial altercation. Doncic told Harrell to, quote, stop flopping, man. Later in the game, Harrell allegedly called Doncic a, quote, I'm a quote, bleep-ass white boy.
That's what he said?
Damn, I hate saying that. The two appeared to clear the air before Sunday's game. Harrell even said afterwards he had, quote, nothing but respect for Luka. Luka seemed okay with the incident. Listen to this.
It was okay. No worries. You know, it's a lot of emotions on the court, especially in these playoffs. You know, sometimes you say things you don't want to say. You know, he apologized. I respect that, so no problem.
Acho, does this controversy expose a double standard on what can be said by whom?
It does. It does. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. It does. But there are double standards in life, so let's not act like double standards do not exist. On the football field, on any sports occasion, if you're playing a sport that's not co-ed, you might refer to a male as a name that you would never refer to a female if you were playing that same sport. Because while trash talk is trash talk, there are thresholds and there are lines that you can and cannot cross. Now, Montrez, tripping. We knew that. We've established that. Why is he tripping? Because last game's leading scorer, Lou Williams, for the Clippers, has equality on the back of the jersey.
I couldn't talk to you.
There are social justice messages that are being equality, justice. We're in the middle of not only a pandemic of the body, but a pandemic of the mind, which is racism. So if we are going to try to fight for equality, let's just try to keep things as fair as we can. But we have to remember, history and context matters, Marcellus.
Okay.
White boy historically in America has never had negative connotation. So many people on Twitter, because I thought I was one of the first people to post a video where, well, imagine if the reverse would have been said. You talking about black boy, or you talking about something a little worser? Because black boy has negative historical connotation. Like black boy just a little bit makes a black person, it can make your skin kind of crawl a little bit because of what that means historically. Is there a double standard? Absolutely. Are there double standards in life? Absolutely. Should Montrez have said it? Absolutely not. But the last thing and the most important thing, Marcellus, Luka wasn't tripping. If Luka's not tripping, who am I to sit here and be like, nah, Luka, you better be mad. Luka not tripping, I'm going to be like, okay, Montrez, be better. Luka not tripping, I'm not going to trip.
Look, the beginning, what you said, took me for a loop right there because Montrez is in the wrong, and even if double standards exist, they're wrong as well. Two wrongs don't make it a right, so since there's double standards...
3 rights make a left.
3
rights do make a left.
Well, 4 rights. So here's the thing. You don't need a history with a word or the flip of that to actually give you a justification of being outraged. I know why Luka wasn't outraged, but I'll get to that in a second. So anytime I call a grown man a boy, I don't need history with that. Like, you're not a boy, but if I called you a boy, you don't even need to go to history to be like, yo, we okay? Like, everything good. So that's one. But let's get to the origins of this term. To me, that is derogatory. And I know where it comes from. It comes from the white guy who gets a pass, who gets cred when the black players or people are in the majority. And I've seen it happen so many times growing up. This is an old topic. No one on the planet thinks that a double standard is wrong, and no one on the planet thinks that Luka should have heard that from Montrezl without punishment. Montrezl needs to be punished for this, not just, okay, I give you a dap.
Oh, you like suspension?
Look,
fines?
Fines is good because when Kobe got his issue with using the F word, he had his fine. The NBA selected with this. So here's the thing. If I'm Luka, I'm sitting there like, oh, okay. I understand that there's certain situations. Go to the neighborhood, and it's a white dude, but it's mostly black dudes growing up. Then they start calling the dude that, and he takes it because he's like, y'all really outnumber me more than anything, and it desensitizes. So when I got to the league, I was looking and everybody saying that, and I was like, bruh, if they flip that on us, we'd be out here tripping. Just like the NBA right now is out there with an outcry that comes from something historically that is just wrong. But is this just wrong? Yes, because there's a golden rule, Acho. Your daddy raised you better than this. Do unto others as you want them to do to yourself. Let's apply that right here. Let's apply that here. Let's go to Slick Rick Dubuque right now. And Rick, tell us about the double standard. Does it exist right here?
For sure, it does. And I'm very clear on the terms of this double standard. Just flip it around. If Luka Doncic had said the same thing to Montrezl Harrell, replace white with black, and said the exact same thing, there would be people calling for him to be thrown out of the league. Whatever the outrage is over what Montrezl said, the outrage would be much greater. And it's one of those things where, as a white dude who's played in predominantly sports dominated by black athletes, I understand the rules. First of all, there's no phrase that I can start a color with and reference it to a person. Black, yellow, you name it. I can't do it. The second part is I can never call a brother a boy for the reasons that Acho stated. I know that is fraught with history.
That's a problem.
That is charged. I'm asking for malice in the palace too if I do that. I understand that those are the rules. And this is, but I don't have, like, I am so tired of everybody wants to pull back the curtain and know what it's really like in sports. And then you find out and people are offended. Oh, I can't believe they said that. Or look, anything that is said in the heat of competition has to be taken in that context with a huge grain of salt. Because as you guys well know, some of it is trying to get a psychological ed. I'm trying to distract that guy. I'm trying to have him think more about me than the job that he has at hand. And if I can say something that's going to get him to boil, then maybe I'm doing my job. That is part of competition. But here's the other part that I have no problem with this. In fact, I don't have a problem with the double standard. I actually feel fortunate that I've experienced it in this small way. And I would say that white athletes in general are fortunate because we get to feel what that double standard is from the other side. And we get to do it in a rather non-injurious way. Okay, I can be called things that I can't call a brother, that I can't call somebody of color. You know what? I see how that lands. And as a result, when I look at the rest of society and I look at the double standards that I have to my advantage, I am more sensitive to those because I felt what that double standard feels like from the other side. So I don't have a problem with it. Is it a double standard? Absolutely. But I think it's a beneficial one in this case.
It is a double standard, Marcellus. I'm not saying that it is not. What I'm saying is two things. Number one, this is the first time I saw Luka's quotes. If Luka's not upset about it, who am I to try to throw gasoline on a fire that Luka's trying to put out? Luka's the primary victim here. If the primary victim is cool, then who am I who's just sitting there in the stands to be like, nah, Luka, get mad, get mad. Now, with that being said, still, Montrezl, Luka didn't necessarily have to be cool with that. So you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't let it happen. But again, I've heard people say, well, it's just trash talk. while it may be trash talk, there are lines in trash talk. The line to a white person, so to speak, based on historical context, is a little further than the line to a black person based on historical context. Those are the two primary factors that we need to understand when assessing the situation. But the biggest factor, if Luka, the victim, so to speak, at play, if he is cool, then we should be cool and let it go as well.
Not in my life, not in my house. Right and wrong is a separate conversation from sensitive or insensitive. If it's wrong, I don't give a damn if I'm sensitive or insensitive to it, like Luka seems to be insensitive to it. It's still a conversation of right versus wrong, and this is wrong. No one's raising their kids to say, hey, let's get into a subculture where the blacks are the majority in those sports, and then you got to take the one-way racism. I don't like that. Slick Rick the Bucher, I release you from your guilt, because you don't have to sit there and you don't need a pass. You don't need to all of a sudden feel like, oh, that's what they feel when I flip it on them.
But you know what? But it doesn't hit me like that. Like, again,
you're not sensitive.
it's in the context of competition. If it's happening out on the street, if it's happening in society, that's different. I just think we're applying social mores to competitive professional sports, and it's not built for that.
I give you that, but I have to end it. We got to go to break. But let me just say this. You can't use what I am against me, only what I do. So if we keep that along with the golden rule, then I think we'd be a little better, even in sports.